Good morning, this is Mona and this is my morning view. Today, Spring Edition 2025, the construction vehicles are here and there, but there doesn't seem to be any construction, so nice and quiet. Quiet on this Monday morning, first day of spring break. It is spring 2025. I was joking around Thursday night with my husband when it got chilly and there was a few flakes in the air, and it was like, it's going to be a snow day tomorrow. The last day is going to be a snow day, snow day, snow day. I was joking. Saturday morning, however, I woke up. Friday morning there was no snow, and we had outdoor recess, and it got colder and colder as the day went on. And then by the time I left my grandbaby, it was really cold, and there were snowflakes here and there, flurrying. And so that may have been Thursday with the flurries. I don't remember. I just remember that there were flurries either Thursday or Friday, but it got very, very cold on Friday. So with that, I woke up Saturday morning. There was nothing in the weather report about it. It talked about rain for Saturday. There was 3 inches of snow when I woke up. 3 inches of snow. And it snowed all day. And Sunday, it melted all away. There's this little tiny bit right here from shoveling the deck. That's it. That's it. Oh, and a clump with a plow left one down at the bottom of the hill. The snow, there was no evidence. By yesterday afternoon, there was just really, other than a few little spots here and there was no evidence that it had snowed. And in fact, I took my jacket off coming out of church and going into the store. I was like, I don't need my jacket. I don't even need my jacket. Spring can be a little crazy. So, today it is Memory Monday. And I've been rattling my brain for a memory. I've had multiple memories coming up, but most of them sound like a Tips Tuesday type of deal. And so, when I started this, I was like, okay, I'll go with this memory. And by the time I finished talking about spring, it was gone. The memory of what I was going to talk about is no longer in my mind. And that happens sometimes. So, let me think for a moment. Sometimes impromptu is a little bit more difficult than it has to be. Memories. Easter. This is Easter week. Yesterday was Palm Sunday. Passover has started. And so, therefore, we have multiple things we can talk about concerning this week. I could go from eating leeks and onions by the Nile. Oh, what breath. But dining out in style. Quote from a song from Keith Green. Don't want people to think that I made that up or that I'm plagiarizing. I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. But I think of that phrase when I think about the grumbling and the complaining and the rebellion that took place from the Israelites coming out of Egypt. And I'm like, I got a whole lot of memory with obedience. Or rather, disobedience. Lots of memories from that. And it's like, I don't want to talk about that today. That's more like a Tips Tuesday type of thing. So where could I go with that? I mean, with Passover, starting yesterday, it's like, it'd be perfect to talk about Passover and what it means, what it represents. There's another category of a conversation that we had yesterday concerning things that people think are biblical and are not, because it's the narrative that is said quite often by people in the church that obviously do not know what their Bible says about it. Things like when a child dies, oh, they've gained a new angel in heaven. Humans do not become angels. They do not. That we're all going to live happily ever after in heaven. Also not so. We're going to live on new earth. There'll be a new heaven and a new earth. The old will pass away. And so that's where we will be residing. And so there's different spaces in the Bible where it talks about things. And then there is the narrative by the average Christian person that just doesn't know, because they've heard it. They've heard it in the church. They've heard it sometimes, I guess, from the pulpit. I don't know. They've definitely heard it from their family, their friends, people maybe that they admire. There's just so much that people say, and so they end up going, oh, that must be true. And not necessarily so. So I'm thinking about growing up when I was a kid with Easter week. For a memory, it was like, what was our Easter like when I was a kid? So this isn't so much of a training as it is just a thing going down memory lane a little bit, and maybe there'll be something come out of it. I don't know. So we start out with when I was a kid. Easter morning. We did not go to church. We would get up. We would function like any other weekend, except for we knew we were on spring break. So we slept in. But we did have chores that we had to do and different things. And we would go on like this little Easter egg hunt. Mom would boil about a dozen eggs. Did not go crazy. I only remember my brothers and I. I don't remember my sisters in this process because they were older and had moved away. So it was just the three of us, and a dozen eggs is enough for 3 children and 2 adults. So we would color eggs that week, that night before or day before, and decorate them and do whatever we were doing. And then we had, I'm guessing it was my mother who hid the eggs out in the yard. It was pretty much in the front yard. We didn't hide them in the backyard. Now, our yard was very different than what our yard is today. This yard, it's a piece of property that's less than an acre. The front yard was probably 5 acres. So just the yard space, not where the animals roamed. So therefore, and not counting up the hill or across the creek or any of that. So we would hunt for eggs. And I remember having this little tin bucket, little pail. And my stuff would be in this little pail. So there would be these sugar eggs. We used to call them Fabergé eggs. But Fabergé eggs are not made out of sugar. Just in case you didn't know. But inside the egg, it was decorated with some type of a hard frosting. And inside the egg, there was like a decoration inside the egg. So you could see this. It was probably about yay big. There was bigger ones because my neighbors used to get bigger ones, but ours were little. They fit into this bucket, and with the bucket was things like a little shovel and things that we could play in the dirt with, right? Probably for the beach, but we never went to the beach. So for me, it was playing in the dirt. My mom would make a ham with all the fixings. So it was kind of like a Thanksgiving or Christmas feast. Thanksgiving was turkey, Christmas was turkey, and Easter was ham. We could not afford lamb, so ham is what we had. And as well as I can remember, it was canned ham. It was not the ham shank that we get from ShopRite. It was a canned ham. Now she made it nice, but still. So that was our Easter. We didn't talk about the Easter bunny so much. I think we may have gotten a chocolate bunny. I don't remember the chocolate bunny. I do remember the eggs, the sugar eggs. And we didn't talk about Jesus either. We knew about these things because people talked about them at school. The Easter bunny, what did the Easter bunny bring, Jesus rose from the dead. You heard about that kind of throughout life, but it wasn't a norm to hear that on Easter. I can't even remember the time that I actually knew what Easter was all about, because Easter isn't Easter. Resurrection Sunday is not Easter. They call it that. Easter was a pagan holiday concerning a fertility goddess. He was around Jerusalem. Jesus was around Jerusalem during the time of Easter. It didn't mean he celebrated it. It meant that was a time frame that was happening while he was there, which also coincides with Passover. He was there for Passover. Those 3 Jewish holidays that you show up as a male Israelite. You show up to Jerusalem for 3 specific holidays: Passover, Pentecost, and Sukkot. The other holidays were not mandatory. So there was a time when Jesus was in town for the Festival of Lights. Do you know what the Festival of Lights is? Most Christians don't, because they don't celebrate Jewish holidays. They are missing out on a lot of things that have to do with their Savior by not celebrating Passover, Pentecost, Sukkot, and the meaning of those, that at least to know what they were and what their meanings were. So with the Festival of Lights, that had to do with the Maccabees. You don't see that story in the Protestant Bible. You see it in the Catholic Bible. And so what happens is the Maccabees was going on a revolt against Romans. I don't think it was Rome. He was more of a magistrate in Syria. He may have been Roman. Can't remember exactly the whole story of the Maccabees because I wasn't raised with the Maccabees. As a Christian, I didn't study the Maccabees. But I do know about the Maccabees, and because I wanted to know about Hanukkah. It's a Jewish holiday. Why do they celebrate this? So I went on a search on why do they celebrate this, and it had to do with the story in the Maccabees where the temple was desecrated, and the guy, I can't remember his name. The memory. Memory Mondays, what it's all about. He went down to Egypt. He picked a fight down there. They said, look, you need to leave town or, be done with. So he came back in a defeat, and wanted to take it out on Israel. And so, when he did, he desecrated the temple. He did all this stuff. Really ticked the Israelites off. The Maccabees were these guys that got together. These brothers were like, we're done with this BS. Our temple was desecrated. This is not going to happen, anymore. We're not taking this. So they rebelled against this guy and fought. And they only had enough oil in the temple, holy oil, for 1 day. 1 day. And it took 7 days to process oil that was holy enough to be used in the temple. So the 1 day of oil lasted the full 7 days. Therefore, they celebrated that God extended the oil until new oil was furnished. Hence the holiday. Now, I don't really know how they celebrate it other than they eat a whole lot of things like donuts. Whole lot of sugar. They go on a sugar high for a bit. So anyways, and then they do the dreidel. Dreidel. That's a game. I have no idea how it's played. I have no understanding of why they play it. Complete lack of knowledge in that area. That's not a memory issue. That is a lack of knowledge issue. So anyways, Jesus showed up for the Festival of Lights. So he showed up in Jerusalem multiple times. Definitely the 3 times that is mandatory to show up. And one of those times is, around Easter, but not a Jewish holiday, not a Christian holiday. It is a pagan holiday. And a lot of us just don't comprehend that a lot of the holidays that Christians observe are taken from pagan practices. They didn't want to leave their practice of what they were doing, so they incorporated it and said, well, this is something we can incorporate and talk about with Jesus. So here we have the egg that represents life, and Jesus came to life. You can wrap it up in pretty packages. But a metal muffin is still a metal muffin. No matter how much you spray paint it and decorate it and make it, look pretty. It's still what it is. Do we celebrate Easter? Yes. Family tradition. The family celebrates Easter. They take the kids to go see the Easter Bunny. They hunt for eggs. They do the stuff. But at one point, do you grow up? At what point do you realize there is no Easter Bunny? At what point do you put the notions that you've been taught and the traditions that you've been taught to the side and say, oh, well, children who pass away don't become angels. Humans that pass away do not become angels. There's some thoughts here that may go against what you have known to believe. I'm not here to mix up anybody's doctrine. But these are ideas that roam around in the Christian church. And they're not biblical. I think it was the Corinthians that embraced the idea of Jesus. And they piled them on top of all the other beliefs that they had, so that they had all these multiple beliefs. It kind of reminds me of a story that was on a tape that I had when I was in the Marine Corps by a comedian. Can't remember the comedian's name. Doesn't matter whether they were true stories or whether they were not true stories. They were stories that brought a point, and they were funny as all get out. And so they were presented as true stories. And so when people said that they were false stories, I don't know whether they were true or false. It could have been people just going against him, accusing him of false stories, or perhaps they were false. I don't know, but that's part of the reason why he's gone into obscurity a little bit. I remember his name, Mike Warnke. So if you can find some Mike Warnke, old Mike Warnke comedy sketches or whatever, funny. But he talked about going to Vietnam, and the guy that was an atheist, and he's like, I don't believe in God. I don't. And they went in, and they were in a firefight, and they came back from the firefight, and then he came back off of a few days off or something, and all around his neck he had all these pieces of jewelry. He had a cross, he had a Star of David, he had all these different things, jewelry all around his neck, and he's like, what is that? you got everything around you, Mr. Atheist. And he goes, well, after the other day, he goes, I can't afford to make anybody mad. He piled them all on top of himself like they were going to protect him, that the charms themselves connected him to the gods that they represented, and therefore he wasn't going to make anybody angry by not wearing theirs. It doesn't quite work that way. It doesn't quite work that way. You can't pile things onto your own beliefs. You can't, you can, obviously, because we've done it. And we've gotten wrapped up in the traditions and the whole Christmas and Easter, how we celebrate that. And what the true meaning of these things are. And Easter is an Easter. You're celebrating Resurrection Sunday. Like I said, Easter was a pagan god. About fertility, hence the bunny rabbits and the eggs. And so we're not celebrating Easter, but we all call it that because that's what we've called it our whole life. What is Easter? If you ask somebody what Easter is all about, if they have any recollection of the Bible story at all, they'll say it's when Jesus rose from the dead. They don't say, oh, it's a pagan holiday for this fertility goddess and we worship her, so we're gonna, It's not what they do. They talk about Jesus. to talk about Jesus. Jesus rose from the dead. We're celebrating the life that he represents through eggs. Or the abundant life represented through the bunny, or whatever. Whatever it is that they correlate those things to Jesus. Piling their traditions and holding on to their traditions because they don't want to let them go. So let's morph them and say that there's something else. And that way we can continue having a feast. We can continue doing whatever it is. I don't know historically how they worshipped Easter. I don't know whether that was something that they colored eggs for. I don't know. I doubt it. I'm not sure when that tradition came around. Probably a good study for this week. How did it all start? Why do we celebrate it the way we celebrate it? What are the things? What are the traditions of man? What are the things that God is requiring of us? All right. That's where I'm going to leave you for today. It's just a Memory Monday. It's not a you should do this, or here's a tip, or here's a bunch of biblical context to why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's just a memory that growing up, I didn't recall hearing about Jesus on Easter Sunday. We didn't go to church, but we celebrated it. We got a couple little things to play with. We got a couple little things to eat. We had a feast. We colored eggs, and we found the eggs. That was it. That was Easter. All right. Blessings, everybody. Have a great day. Follow me on YouTube. These will be uploaded either in the evening or the next day. Subscribe. Right there. Subscribe. That's for those people that are watching my YouTube, because you won't see that on Facebook. I'm doing these live on Facebook. I'm uploading them into YouTube because I'm only allowed 3 minutes to speak live, and because these are live, eventually there will be trainings that are prepared, but for right now, these are live on Facebook and then uploaded into YouTube until they give me longer than 3 minutes, hoping for at least 15 minutes, because 15 minutes is ample time to go through these. And because I'm not limited, I tend to just talk as it comes and go, oh, there's another thought to this, so we'll add that, and we'll add that, and we'll add that. And we do a whole lot of additions to these things, and it doesn't really need to be. So 15 minutes is probably enough for me to convey the message and the nuggets and the story. And so that's what I'm hoping for, but I need 50 subscribers. So like it, comment, helps the algorithm when you comment, when you like it. Same thing with Facebook. Comment and like. Even if you disagree. Even if you say, oh, you are so full of baloney. That is just hogwash. Sometimes the hog needs washed. You know? So, hit all the bells and whistles. Get all the stuff. Follow me. And I'm supposed to do that commercial 3 times during this, and I forget every time. I remember at the end. So at least I'm getting it out there. And so I will go over to YouTube now. I will do my 3-minute commercial for this particular video, and have a great week. Tomorrow is Tips Tuesday. Again, I'm on vacation. I don't have to do these on vacation. I don't do them on weekends or holidays or vacations if I don't feel like it. And if I feel like it, I do. But normally Monday through Friday are the live videos for My Morning View. And that's where I'm leaving it today. Thank you all, and go to YouTube, Mona E. Harrison. I forgot to tell you the name of it, because it's not the same name on Facebook. It's, you're already on Facebook, so you know where I'm at on Facebook. But Mona E. Harrison on YouTube. And look for the white hair. Sometimes I'm wearing a hat. But you know the face. And you'll see it, and so you'll go, yep, that's her, and subscribe. All right. Blessings, everybody. Have a great day. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow.